for the ultimate source of inspiration, knowledge, and entertainment, look no further. Network Kingdom is a unique platform that brings together experts from various industries. Through networking and collaboration, we create inspiring conversations that educate, entertain, and motivate our listeners. Whether you're a business professional, an entrepreneur, or simply someone looking to grow their knowledge base.
Hello, everyone. I'm here again, and I have an amazing guest with me who does wonderful work. You'll soon find out. Her name is Carrie. Carrie, it's nice having you on my podcast today, and I can't wait for you to share your experience and your passion with my family.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to do the same.
Awesome. So we're not wasting time. Just let us know who Carrie is and why she does what she does.
Yeah, so my name is Carrie, and I'm a therapist by training, and then also a coach. And really, my mission, my passion, is to work with those who are childless, not by choice. This is kind of one of those things that it isn't necessarily acknowledged. It can feel really lonely and isolating. You can feel like you're the only one in the world going through something like this. And when I myself am childless, not by choice. And so when I was kind of doing those late night Google searches, right? Like, am I going to be okay? Depressed and single and childless and not by choice. What does that mean? This community showed up, and the childless not by choice community. And it started to give me renewed purpose. It gave me something to go toward. I'm trained in this area, so I sort of gravitate toward working with people anyway. And so really, I think having a shared experience around something that isn't really talked about a lot. I think for many people, we live in an environment where womanhood and motherhood, people think they're one and the same, and they're not. But when you find yourself staring down, the universe may really do this to me. I may really not have kids. It's a real gut punch. And so I'm here to just kind of walk alongside people and help them design a life that's meaningful, purposeful, and fun. And hopefully just kind of be some representation out there that you can go through this really brutal grief, and it is a grief, and your life's not over.
Wow. I like the fact that you acknowledged the fact that it is a grief, and I actually like the word brutal grief because often it's easy to offer solutions and what you reckon as words of wisdom to women who are passing through that experience. But I didn't pass through it firsthand, but I passed through it a bit before I had my first son. And I can only imagine what other women go through, knowing that this is their lifelong, what they have to live with for life. And I'm also, I don't know what to call it. I'm also surprised. Maybe surprise is not the right word, to find out that it's not limited to a particular race or some particular part of the world. It's something that any woman passing through that experience goes through, irrespective of your race, irrespective of your color. Once you're a woman and you're going through that, it's the same grief. It doesn't respect your race or anything like that. And my heart goes out to them. But, as silly as it may sound, coming from someone who has one, I've also learned that it just makes better sense to look for the positive side of everything, as much as you might be asking yourself what is positive in it. But I guess you'd help us with that aspect. And I also like the fact that, I personally say to people that I coach from a point of experience. So I coach and train on things that I have been through personally. So it's easier for me because I've walked down that path. And when I'm telling you it's possible, then I know that it's possible because I've been through it. And so I like the fact that you have experienced it firsthand, because I know that not a lot of women going through that would listen to you knowing that you have 4 kids at home. So it's going to be a case of you don't know what we're going through. You don't. So hearing from someone who is in the same boat with them actually makes a whole load of difference. So I honestly am proud of you, and I really, 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 really appreciate what you're doing. And I'm sure that those listening that can be of support will definitely reach out. And I'm here 24/7 to offer any support whatsoever.
Yeah, I think you can have a therapist or a coach who hasn't gone through it, but they got to be really, really good at what they do.
Yeah, no, it's not impossible. I mean, it's not impossible.
No,
I get the
yeah.
opportunity to speak with, one or two of them, but then even while I'm doing that, I need to be extra careful about my choice of words
Yes.
and the way that I do things. And I'm actually using myself as an example. At the time that I was looking for a son, I can imagine someone who had kids coming to tell me, oh, don't worry, look at the brighter side. No matter how nice you sound, I would take it. And even if I know you don't mean any harm, I can actually hear myself saying, yeah, right, you don't know the half of it.
You're exactly right. Yes. And that's why the skill set has to go up 20 notches. If you're seeing
100
somebody
notches more
yeah.
like.
Yeah. And I really think, obviously in the work that I do, not only the work that I did with myself, right, and continue to do, because there's no kind of end point, I think, in a lot of ways, right? This is the type of grief that kind of is a rolling grief, where traditional grief is like this too, right? Where you have moments where you're doing well, you can absorb what's going on, and then something will come off from the side, right? And it'll re-trigger it. And so, I think mindset work is really important when you're working with somebody who is childless, not by choice, because for lack of a better word, brainwashing / social conditioning, right? It starts very, very early in terms of, oh, when you have kids, think how early that starts for us, right?
Absolutely.
And
we're quick to say when you have kids. We don't say if you have kids. You're not even giving the training that it's possible that you might not have. And I don't know about your culture, but in my culture, even if you said something like if, you would hear things like, don't say that, God forbid. Of course, you're going to have kids,
Yes. Yeah. And, I think it's, you hear kids are a blessing. Absolutely. Kids are a blessing. They're not the only blessing, though. And that's super important, I think, because when you're starting to go through that grief, all of these things that you didn't even realize you absorbed start going into the forefront of your mind, right? No one,
blessing is also a common word. So, as a Christian, I can actually see you questioning yourself. Am I a sinner, or are my sins more than that? Or does God hate me? Or how come I'm not being blessed? And you easily overlook all the other numerous blessings that you have. I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's brutal and it's intense and it's lonely. And sometimes when we are experiencing it or reaching out to people who love us and want to support us and want to help us in any way that they can, the gut instinct can be to problem solve for somebody, or
yeah.
if it's God's will it will happen, or things like that. And that may be true, however it may not be true. There are some times where something happens and it's nothing anybody's done, it just is. And it doesn't mean your life is over. It doesn't mean that you're going to be lonely. It doesn't mean no one's going to love you. It doesn't mean you can't have greater purpose and meaning in your life. It does mean that you're going to go through something that really sucks. It
And
really, really does. And you can feel more grounded in who you are.
And also you just said something like if it's God's will, or and you start asking yourself, how come it's not his will? And then so I even talking about it, my brain is doing
Yes.
a lot of work, and I can't even begin to imagine if I was the one wearing those shoes. So how has your journey been? How did you get to the point where you're able to talk about it? And I'm sure you still have your bad days. You're a human being. We all
Yes.
have our bad days. But before we talk about the bad days, how did you get to this point where you're able to talk about it freely?
Yeah. So for me, my childlessness started out being by circumstance, where I just single and nobody I thought would make a good daddy. So it was like, we're not going down this road. And then time just passes, right? And because of the way that we're socially conditioned, I was like, well, the universe isn't going to do me this way, right? Like everybody who wants a kid has a kid. And then and I chose, like, I did make some strategic choice, not strategic, I don't know why I said that, but I did make some choices where I didn't want to do it by myself. Completely cool for people who do want to do it by themselves. That just wasn't going to be the right fit for me. And now I like physically can't have kids because of a medical issue that sort of arose later. So I kind of like hit all the different reasons why you can't have kids. So it just wasn't meant to be for me, I guess. But anyway, all of that to say is was really feeling low. I would say depressed, very anxious. What is my life going to look like? What's the purpose of my life? What's the meaning of my life? I insert this person has kids and I don't have kids. Everyone in the world can do this except for me. What's wrong with
Yeah.
me? Why am I the only one? Because again, most people around me, if they wanted kids,
Yeah.
they have kids. When I am watching TV, there's really not a lot of single ladies living their best life that feel healthy with no kids on TV, right? And in particular, if they are, usually a partner ends up in this scenario at some point, right? Is this like happily ever after? So, really isolating. And it was like 1 a.m. and I was like, oh my God. And I Googled like single lady with no kids, and the childless not by choice community on social media kind of arose. And so I plugged in there, kind of, in the background a little bit at first. And it was really the first time I saw people experiencing, sort of validating the grief, while also there was some other women a little further ahead who were doing some really amazing things. And then I thought, well, I have a skill set around this, right? And I talk to people about really unexpected things every day. And so I think that's really been one of the things that helped me is how can I like jerk the tail of this narrative for lack of a better word, and start to own it versus it owning me, because this is the type of thing that it's very easy for this to own you, where you just start to accept and believe all the nonsense that we're fed about women who are childless. And so here I
So,
am.
I don't know how it is, but I think now that I've spoken to quite a lot of women from different parts of the world, I have realized that all women go through the same thing. Because I was going to say to you that here you find people who see you and they say, "Oh, Carrie, how are you?" You say, "Fine." And the next thing you hear is, "How are the children?"
So yes, that's one of the things we talk a lot about, is sort of like, how do you answer
Yeah.
questions? Because you can get triggered for I know that's an sort of overplayed word in a
Speaking
lot
to
of
you
ways,
now,
but
it dawns on me it's a trigger. So I'm certainly going to be more conscious about it, even though I had learned to be conscious about going forward. I mean, now I consider it being too forward. You see a woman, and the next thing you say to her is, "How are you? How is the family? How is your husband? How are your children?" I've learned not to make such assumptions because you don't know what's the trigger for anyone. But then again, not a lot of people are that sensitive, and they don't mean any harm.
absolutely. And so that's some of the work that I also talk with women about, is really kind of validating how that feels and talking about, okay, so how can we cope in the moment? Because this, for a lot of people, is a get to know you question. And it's somebody making small talk with you. I'm not saying that it's not annoying, right? And that we can ask people, oh, how are you doing today? What are some fun things you've been doing, right? But I think for women, I think we get do you have kids? And men get, how's the job going? What do you do for work, right? And it's sort of implying that, at least the culture that I'm in, it implies that that's sort of our only lanes in life, and that's not how it is for everybody. Now, it is a get to know you question. And what I say to women is, I don't tell women necessarily, or people, never to ask the question. It's a genuine get to know you question. It is. And I think we all have to just accept that not everybody's going to have our point of view in the forefront of their brain every single moment of every day. Um, so what I do tell people is, if somebody says they don't have children, you got to be prepared for that answer too. Because my experience,
Absolutely.
right, my experience is, it's not being asked the question that bothers me. It's the response when I tell you the answer is no. Because now I have completely thrown you for a loop. And now when we get anxious, and sort of that like social norm of, oh, now I'm going to like talk about my kids, and now we're going to bond over these kids, people just start blurting out stuff then. And they don't mean any harm by it, but they're intrusive questions that you shouldn't be asking. So if you're going to ask that question, be prepared for if the answer is no.
Speaking of which, now I said to myself, okay, what would you say? I'll probably find myself, and I don't know if that's because we've had this conversation. I'll probably say to myself, "Oh, I apologize, I was being forward," and end it at that. But thinking back now, I've also seen scenarios where very forward people, and unfortunately, your fellow women would say things like, "What are you still waiting for?
Mhm.
You're still playing." And then where I come from, the older women would say things like, "Age is not on your side anymore. You're still playing. You need to,
That happens here.
and they, oh, really? And they
Yeah.
really, and, I think that has happened in front of me, someone else. And I'm looking and wanting to say to you, stop, you know. And the lady is being gracious and smiling. And I have that as well, or I used to have that when my son was still a child, when people would say, oh, you have just one child. What are you still waiting for? He's old enough to have a younger sibling. What, and I'm looking at them. It's either I'm smiling or I'm looking at you and I'm like, where on earth do you get off? Is it any of your business? And, you're smiling and the person is going on, thinking it's okay to just keep going on. You frown and, it's just, it's really, but you're right. A lot of mind work goes into it. And certainly there's some days you also do not have the energy to go into that kind of mind work.
Yeah, some days you don't want to educate people on it. And so, and again, I think depending on who the person is, I'll speak for me. If I know somebody is not trying to be disrespectful to me right now. And so then I would say earlier in my years, I didn't want to make it awkward. Right. And I didn't want them to feel bad. So I would try and rescue us out of this really awkward situation. And now I don't do that. I'm not trying to be rude to anybody who I think is just, for lack of a better word, ignorant to the fact that there's a possibility that a woman wouldn't have kids. Because listen, I didn't think that I wouldn't have kids if I wanted them. They're they're in the same environment that I am, where we equate these things. So why would this person not understand it? Why would this person understand it when I never understood it until it was me? So I do try and have some grace around that. Now, I don't rescue somebody out of it anymore. So if somebody asks me if I have kids and I say no, and then sometimes people ask, oh, didn't you want them? Or that's the most recent one that occurred. That doesn't happen as often, that question. I think most people recognize that that's super intrusive. But I just say yes. And then I just sit in the silence. Or somebody asks me if I have kids and I say no, and then I just sit in the silence. And now you can ask me a different question about who I am as a human.
Yeah. So, let's even concentrate on the women who go through this. What would be your tips for a woman who is listening and is going through the same challenge?
Yeah. Seek community. When I have asked women, what do you wish that you would have known a lot earlier? Or what's the one piece of advice that you could tell your younger self around this? Hands down, I wish I would have found this community sooner. There is power in community. There's power in friendship. There's power in being able to have a space where you can show up authentically as who you are, and feel seen, understood, and listened to, while at the same time seeing other women starting to build a life that you might think, that looks kind of fun. Listen, if I had to do this again, I would want children. However, that's not going to happen for me. And so I have to now step forward and find these joys that are there. And that it's not a second life. It's not your bronze medal life or your silver medal life. This is still your life. That isn't your backup. This can still be an amazing life for you. Because there may be some things you never, ever considered, and you may start to see other people doing it. And when you see other people doing it, your brain starts to think, well, maybe I can too. So if there's only one thing, it would be get in community.
Awesome. Honestly, speaking with several people, I've also learned that community in every aspect of your life really helps. Community, and an authentic one really helps. Wow, this has been an exceptional exceptional interview. Do you run your own community now?
Yeah. So yes, I'll give mine, and then I'll also give some of the other big ones in the community, just because I like people to have lots of options. So I'm on Instagram at the Other Path Coaching. Other Path being,
What?
we're
What?
the Other Path Coaching. Other Path being this other path for women. And then also I run a online community called Sonder Sisterhood, Sondr. And we are just an online community. I also have a YouTube channel that gives out lots of free content in terms of like coping, mindset, journaling. I'd like to think I'm a little funny on there sometimes, just to kind of bring it real. And again, we do like monthly book clubs or recently we've been reading articles that are more related to this. We do like monthly socials. Sometimes we do like groups or education workshops, things like that. Just an opportunity to get together with other people like you. And we like to think that we do a really good balance around being able to give people an opportunity to express themselves and verbalize the hurt and difficultness around it, while also balancing that with, and now what? And now what? Because we have to be in the grief. We cannot skip the grief. And we cannot get stuck in it. And I say that from a place of love and understanding, as somebody who's been through it. So yeah, you can follow me in those places. There's also kind of the big group for childlessness is Lighthouse Women through Gateway. And that's another place that you can look. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but most people in this community are also a part of that group. And there's lots of women doing really amazing things out there, men too, but it's overwhelmingly women in this space right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carrie, and I'm wishing you all the best. And remember, I'm just one call away.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was really fun.
Thank you. So, guys, you might want to reach out to Carrie and support her and give her a hug and pat her on the back. She's doing great work. Thank you, guys, and I'm out.
You've been listening to Network Kingdom with Omo Obulor. Remember, if you cannot see where you're going, ask someone who has been there before.